Normally, they would be in the trailer. As she grabbed the door handle, she found it locked. Christopher would always open it first thing for her to just walk in. Perplexed, she grabbed her spare key and tentatively stepped inside. It was totally silent. She looked down and saw a trail of blood. A drag mark. She followed it and found the bodies of her brother-in-law Christopher Rhoden Sr. and his cousin Gary Rhoden in the bedrooms.
Did you drive over there?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what's your name?
Mine?
What's your brother-in-law's name?
Chris Rhoden and Gary Rhoden.
Chris and Gary Rhoden? You think they're both dead?
I think they're both dead. Looks like someone has beat the fuck out of them.
Is there anybody else in the house?
Not that I know of. The doors was locked when we got here, and I went in, and they were laying on the floor.
Okay. I need you to get out of the house and wait.
I'm done now.
Okay?
I'm standing outside right now.
Okay, just stay out of the house. Don't let anybody go in there, okay?
Yeah.
All right, we got deputies on the way, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As she shakily ended her 911 call, she hurried over to one of Dana and Christopher's sons, Clarence Christopher Jr., who went by Frankie. Frankie lived in a trailer just a stone's throw away from his parents, with his fiancée Hannah Gilly and their 6-month-old son Ruger. Frankie's child from another relationship, Brentley, would also stay there a lot too. Bobby banged on the door, and to her surprise, 3-year-old Brentley opened it. He seemed confused and said it looked like his dad had turned into a zombie. He had grabbed his hand to try and wake him up, but his hand had dropped to his side. Bobby ran inside to find the bodies of her nephew Frankie and his fiancée Hannah. They were both dead in their bed, blood soaking the sheets and floor. Next to them was their 6-month-old son Ruger. He was patting his dad's chest and was also covered in blood, but miraculously both Ruger and Brentley were physically unharmed. Bobby was beside herself, and one cannot begin to imagine what was going through her head at that point. She and Dana had a brother, James, and he headed over to Dana's trailer, who was also just a short walk away. They all lived on the same plot of land. He walked in and found their sister, 37-year-old Dana, dead as well. He then found hers and Christopher Sr.'s 2 children, 19-year-old Hannah Rhoden and 16-year-old Christopher Jr. They had all been in their beds, and all of them had been shot to death. Hannah had been in her bed with her 4-day-old baby, Kylie. Kylie was also alive and physically unharmed. In a matter of minutes, 7 people had been found deceased, 4 children left without parents, and as police sped over, local news quickly descended on the trailers. Little did authorities know, another call would come in a few hours later, several miles away. Donald Stone, hearing the news, decided to go and check on his cousin, Kenneth Rhoden. Kenneth was Christopher Sr.'s brother.
911, can I help you?
Yeah, I need a deputy to come out to close to...
Okay.
It's all this stuff that's on the news. I just found my cousin with a gunshot wound.
Kenneth lived on Left Fork Road, just a few miles away from where some of his family had just been found. But the 44-year-old was also dead, having been shot in the head. He was surrounded by cash.
Okay, sir, is he alive?
No.
What's his name?
Kenneth Rhoden.
Okay, sir, are you out of the house?
I'm out of the house right now.
Okay, sir, we're going to get deputies out there to you, okay? All right. Take care.
There are breaking developments in the massacre in Pike County. We've been those to 700 WLW. It is not known if the gunman is among the dead.
8 bodies in total had now been discovered in 4 separate places. They had all been shot, some as many as 9 times. 40-year-old Christopher Rhoden Sr., his ex-wife, 37-year-old Dana Manley Rhoden, their 3 children, 19-year-old Hannah Rhoden, 16-year-old Christopher Jr., and 20-year-old Frankie Rhoden. 20-year-old Hannah Gilley, Frankie's fiancée, 38-year-old Gary Rhoden, Christopher Sr.'s cousin, and 44-year-old Kenneth Rhoden, Christopher Sr.'s brother. The 3 young children, 4-day-old Kylie, 6-month-old Ruger, and 3-year-old Brentley were all taken out of the area and put into temporary protective custody. Hannah Rhoden also had another daughter, almost 3-year-old Sophia. She had been out of the house with her dad Jake that day and was also unharmed. The dogs were taken away as well.
Investigators worked through the night, gathering clues about the killings of 8 members of the Rhoden family. One of 4 properties turned crime scene in Pike County. Most of the victims shot as they lay in bed, one with her 4-day-old baby nearby. That infant is one of 3 young children to survive the massacre.
That's out of my realm of thinking that anyone could do that. How heartless.
A $25,000 reward's now being offered as the small town of Piketon remains on edge.
And I'm thinking, what else will happen in our community? What's going on?
Everyone knew the Rhoden family. They were a big part of their community. Christopher Sr. had lived in Ohio since birth. He had spent most of his life working in construction and was described as hard-working, dependable, a family man. His now ex-wife Dana and he had always maintained a very good relationship despite their split. She was a nursing assistant and loved gardening and baking, and was a big presence in her local church. 20-year-old Frankie had taken after his dad and studied welding. He was excited to marry Hannah, progress with his work, and just be the best dad he could be to his 2 young sons. His fiancée, Hannah Gilley, said she loved nothing more than being a mother. She wanted a house of kids and a big, bustling family. The youngest victim of the shooting, Christopher Jr., was known as a funny kid with a very sharp sense of humour. He was a talented performer too, singing baritone in his choir. His sister Hannah Rhoden was a nursing assistant like her mom, but her big passion was photography. She was loud and feisty with a big personality. Much like his brother Christopher Sr., Kenneth Rhoden was a hard worker too. He would drive an hour each way to his job in Columbus, Ohio, but didn't like being away from his family for too long. Gary Rhoden was said to be quiet, but the kindest and most helpful guy you could meet. If you called him at 2 a.m. and needed something, he was there. News was spreading further afield than the local stations, and it was soon international.
And now the search is on for a suspect who could still be at large.
I cannot confirm that there is no one still on the loose that may be involved in this. If they are, they will be armed and dangerous.
The investigation at each scene will continue as police try to find out what may have motivated someone to commit this kind of mass murder.
Before long, all eyes were on the small community of Piketon. Looking at the crime scenes, it seemed that everyone had been killed in the middle of the night. Christopher Sr. and Gary appeared to have been shot first at around midnight. It was clearly a methodical hit, almost like an execution. It had been well planned out and well thought through. 3-year-old Brentley could tell the police nothing. He had been asleep in the front room at the time and didn't see or hear anything. No one else had either. No cars appeared to have driven past at the time, and there were no neighbours apart from each other. Although there were 4 separate crime scenes, they were all very close. 3 of them being less than a few minutes' walk from each other. Police were able to move all the trailers and put them into a warehouse together, where they monitored them each hour. They also seized and searched dozens of vehicles on the land. They did think they gained a lead quite quickly with some discoveries at the properties.
Well, Julie, Attorney General Mike DeWine says 3 pot-growing operations were found at 3 crime scenes. It's more clues in this very mysterious case.
I don't think pot's a part of it.
It's one drug or another drug around here.
The Piketon community reacting after learning a pot-growing operation was found at 3 of the homes where 8 members of the Rhoden family were shot execution style.
Marijuana grow crops were found at 3 of the 4 scenes, with 2,000 cannabis plants in one location. And this initially led them to suspect the potential involvement of the Mexican cartel, especially given that Kenneth, who was growing plants outside, was found surrounded by a large sum of cash as well. It seemed that crime scene had been staged as some sort of sign. Detectives believed there was definitely more than one shooter as well. 3 different types of shell casings had been found, along with different size shoe prints and treads. However, the theory of the cartel was soon questioned. The killers had to know the properties. They had to know the layouts and the routines of the family members very well too, and it also seemed odd that the dogs did not react. People they didn't know in the middle of the night would have undoubtedly caused a commotion. Perhaps the killers had silencers on their guns as well. There were so many questions, but one thing could now be ruled out: the cartel theory. To leave the children and the dogs unharmed was unusual. One detective said with hits like this, there are rarely any survivors or witnesses. The killers simply had to be known to the Rhoden family. Despite the public's very natural worries about their own safety, the police knew this was personal. They did not suspect anyone else in the community was in danger. Moving quickly enough, investigators were trying to find the balance between sharing information and being very careful about what they said. They knew the killers, whoever they were, would be watching everything, and they had to stay one step ahead of them. At this point, detectives had executed dozens of search warrants, and one day went to search the grounds of a 27-acre farm in Peebles, Ohio. A few tips told them this was an important area to look at. The farm had sold a couple of months earlier, but it was once owned by Edward Wagner, who went by Jake. Jake was the father of Sophia and the ex-boyfriend of Hannah Rhoden.
New details are emerging in the weekend property searches connected to the Rhoden family murders in Pike County. The owner of one of the properties tells the 9 on Your Side I-Team that investigators showed up at his house because of the ex-boyfriend of one of the victims.
You see on some Chopper 9 footage from last Friday that detectives searching through several trailers on property where a business called Unlimited Motors is located. I spoke with the property owner today who said the trailers and all that stuff belongs to a guy named Jake Wagner and his family. He says the Wagners dropped off the trailers about 10 days ago and he was supposed to store it for them temporarily. Over the weekend, we confirmed through property records that the other 2 properties investigators searched on Friday and Saturday are also connected to the Wagner family. The Rhoden murders have gone unsolved for 14 months.
The connection between the Wagners and the Rhodens was definitely there, and police had been closely watching all of them since they found out that Jake and Hannah had been in disputes about the custody of Sophia. Police couldn't help but wonder either. Sophia was not in any of the homes on the day of the shootings. Was this a total coincidence, or did it point to a sinister plan? But investigators had never named anyone in the Wagner family as a person of interest, let alone a suspect. However, in small towns like this, where everyone knows everyone else's business, it wouldn't be long before some people started speculating. The Wagner family were wealthy and powerful, and everyone in Piketon knew them. It was a name that had a lot of weight behind it. Jake's grandmother, Frederica, owned more than 1,700 acres in Pike County, and records place the value of everything at more than $4 million. A substantial amount of money for anyone, but in that particular area, it was unheard of. The Wagners were described as a very tight group, one that stuck together and rarely let people into their circle. After the murders, Jake's family, his father Billy, mother Angela, and older brother George, moved 4,000 miles away to Alaska, taking Sophia with them as well. They said they had to flee after getting death threats and listening to the constant lies being spread about them. It was now 2018, and as much as it seemed like the year had been quiet, little did everyone know things had been moving behind the scenes. In the last few months, the police had gathered a lot of evidence, and as 2018 started to draw to a close, detectives announced they had finally made 6 arrests in connection with the Rhoden family murders.
Yesterday, a Pike County grand jury indicted 4 individuals for aggravated murder with death penalty specifications.
48-year-old Angela Wagner, her husband, 47-year-old George Wagner III, who went by Billy, their 2 sons, 27-year-old George IV and 26-year-old Jake, were all arrested and charged with murder, along with 20 other charges. 65-year-old Rita Newcomb, Angela's mother, and 76-year-old Frederica, Billy's mom, were also both arrested, accused of covering up the murders. Since the police found out about the custody issues with Sophia, they had uncovered enough evidence that showed the plan to kill the Rhodens had been in motion for a while. When she was just 13, he started grooming her, and by all accounts, she was infatuated with the older Jake, who at the time was almost 20. She even moved in with the Wagner family too. They got matching tattoos on their ring fingers and told everyone they were as good as married. By 15, she was pregnant with Sophia, but shortly into her pregnancy, Jake became obsessed with the idea of custody, and even though they were still together at this point, he wanted Sophia all to himself when she was born. He started controlling what Hannah ate, telling her where she could and couldn't go, who she could and couldn't see. His obsessive behaviour was soon too much, and they broke up, with Hannah moving back in with her mother Dana. But because of Sophia, there was now constant tension and issues between the pair, and by extension their families. Jake even started taping their conversations, hoping to catch Hannah saying something that would mean he could take Sophia away. But it never worked. This recording is part of one.
Anyway, so you pick up today, and I pick up tomorrow, and so on and so on. Yeah, my dog.
I don't care. Have a nice day.
This is part of another taped conversation involving his brother George and Sophia.
Why are you so filthy? Do they not know how to give you a bath? Put clothes on you?
One text from Jake to Hannah said, "I done told you she is living with me now, you can live with us or not, that's your choice." Hannah replied that if he tried to take Sophia from her, it would be his worst mistake. Jake said, "Hannah, I'm telling you right now, make a choice and make it now. If you do this, it's over and I'll take Sophie, and if I have to, by force. I love you with all my heart. If you love me and Sophie, you will make the right choice. I want you to live with me and Sophie. That don't mean we have to stay at my house all the time, but she will live wherever I am." When Jake found out that Hannah was pregnant with her second child, Kylie, despite it not being his baby, he demanded that Hannah put his surname on Kylie's birth certificate. Kylie's father was known to the Rhodens already. He was Hannah Gilley's brother, Charlie Gilley. Hannah Gilley had been engaged to Frankie. Jake was furious when she said no, and then tried to get mandatory visitation, claiming that because Kylie was Sophia's sister, he was as good as Kylie's dad too. Even after DNA had proven she was not his baby, he still told everyone Hannah had to be lying, and started accusing her boyfriend of sexually assaulting Sophia. It was such an unsettling reaction to have about a child that was nothing to do with him, but Hannah had no problem fighting him. She was back living with her mother Dana and just wanted a fresh start. Jake persisted with the custody argument, and just a couple of weeks before the murders, he presented Hannah with some papers. Custody documents, in fact, signed by various people. These turned out to have been forged by his mother Angela. Hannah saw right through it, signed nothing, and said no way on earth was this ever going to happen. Jake needed to just leave them alone. Detectives had seized and searched laptops and social media accounts, and they found that Hannah had even put a post on Facebook via her mother's account, letting everyone know what was going on, and vowing to never let him have Sophia full time. "I won't sign papers ever, it won't happen. They will have to kill me first," she said in a chilling post. It really is unknown why it had got to this point in their heads, but Billy, Angela, George and Jake developed an elaborate plan to kill the family. They not only studied their habits, routines, work patterns, and even when the dogs were walked, but they also studied some of the cameras on the properties as well, which had, before the murders, been tampered with. More searches of different homes and vehicles found shell casings which matched those found at the murder scenes, and shoes that matched the same size and tread from the scenes too. They managed to trace the shoes back to Angela buying them at a Walmart just a day before the killings. During another search, police found parts to make silencers for guns, as well as 20 bags of concrete mix. The Wagners had used this to bury some of the weapons and then hide them in a goose house on the lake. What was believed to be a $630 cell phone jammer to prevent the family from calling for help was discovered too. Their bank accounts were also analysed, which showed their money was coming from far more than farming. Police said they had operated